Hello and welcome to our episode of Romantically Readers podcast. My name is Nicole and I am here with the lovely Alley. How are you today, Alley?
I'm doing well. How are you, Nicole?
I am very good, very good. We are currently in the new year. So, new year, new podcast. We're very excited for all the things we're going to bring you. Our first couple episodes are going to be all around Crescent City 3 that is coming to us at the end of this month, 30th of January. It is on my calendar. I am on the countdown. Have you pre-ordered your copy, Ali?
No, which I need to. But I am planning on going to one of the Barnes& and Noble midnight releases here where I live,
Oh,
and I think I'm gonna post an Instagram post on my Instagram that's like, "If you're in Utah and you're a bookstagrammer, like, let's meet up," or something, because there's only Utah is kind of a small state. And there's only 3 Barnes& and Nobles in the whole state that are doing a midnight release party, and so and one of those 3 is, like, a 5-minute drive from my house, which is so exciting for me.
oh,
So I
so
think I'm gonna post and be like, "Do you guys wanna do a meetup?" So if you are listening to this pod and you're in Utah, hit me up in my DMs on my Instagram so we
oh,
can maybe meet up and go. But I think as long as you register for the midnight release party, which I have done, you are guaranteed a copy of the book. So I haven't technically pre-ordered it, but I am guaranteed a copy of the book. So
I am so jealous because in Australia there is no such thing as midnight release parties as of yet. I mean, maybe in Melbourne. I mean, anyone that's Australian, tell me, are there any release parties? I don't know of any. All I've done is I can get in touch with my little local bookstore at my local town and I've just like locked in a copy. I've locked in a hardcover beautiful copy on the 30th of January. I've learnt not to pre-order on Amazon
do not trust Amazon.
Booktopia. They let me down so badly with a couple of the recent releases. I still don't have my copy of Iron Flame from them. I still don't have my copy of A Curse for True Love. Like, yeah, they just went off into the ether. So I'm definitely relying on my local little bookstore. But I would love midnight releases. That would be so
Yeah.
exciting to go and do it with other people. It's so if there is one in Australia that is like in Melbourne, please tell me because I want to go to it and I would love
Yeah.
to meet with other people that want to do it as well.
This is a dumb question, but do you have Barnes& and Noble in Australia?
No, no, we don't, which is so upsetting.
Oh my gosh.
We've got Dimmicks. We've got Dimmicks. I don't know if you guys have Dimmicks. That's our version.
No.
It's good. Like it's good. They gave Rebecca Yarros a really nice award the other week, but it is nothing on Barnes and Noble. Like it is a very very sad second option, but we'll take what we get and we will not complain. I just want to go on holidays to the USA and I just want to go to bookstores. I just want to go to bookstores and just film myself just like in shock, just seeing these
All the
giant,
books available.
oh,
Yeah.
like museums of books. I'll just be in heaven. It's just, yeah, everything's a bit smaller here, but that's okay. As long as I get my releases, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. I am struggling a little bit too with, like, which version I wanna buy because here in the US, we have, like, 6 different versions with special chapters. Like, they all look the same on the outside. So
Yeah.
that's, like, the one thing, that, like, I'm not gonna buy 6 books. I'm just not, even especially if they're all the same. Like, I love
Mhm.
books, but that's a
6
lot for me.
copies is a lot.
But they all have these, like, different bonus chapters. So there's, like, the Barnes& and Noble has, I think it's Bryce and Danica is a bonus chapter, but then
Mhm.
the Walmart, which is crazy to me that Walmart is getting a special edition, but Walmart has Bryce, Hunt, and Jessica, which sounds really interesting to me, and then,
Mhm.
like, Target has there's literally every single place that you can buy them, and they have these different special chapters, and I don't know about you, but when there are different versions and, like, different bonus chapters, I always find it really hard to find them online, um,
Same.
but I'm not gonna buy 6 books, I'm just
No,
not.
no. Yeah, I think
So I have to figure out which version
oh,
or
I have to
versions
sugar.
I will buy.
Which one's the most important? We in Australia, we do miss out on most of those special editions and those bonus chapters. We have to kind of go through the internet hunting for someone that shares those chapters. I think there was a huge one that came out with Akatar and some extra bonus chapters on like Azrael. And like that was a huge bonus
Yeah.
chapter. I think I managed to find some of that online, but it's nothing. I wish I could get those copies and just those extra chapters. And I think a lot of bookstagrammers have really mixed feelings about that sort of authors do this, that they
Yeah.
release them and they give you little bits here and there, but you can't just get the whole book. You can't just get the whole book with, or, you know, you have to go out and repurchase the book again and again.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, these are tight times at the moment. Not everyone can afford to get 6 books. Most of us, you know, we're really excited just to get one and we want to get the information
Mhm.
we can.
And even if I could afford 6 books, I'm just that's just, I might buy 2, maybe 3 versions of a book, especially if they have different covers, like I
Yes.
got the holiday edition of Fourth Wing because it was a red cover, so I do
Oh,
have
that's
2 versions
pretty.
of Fourth Wing. But if they all have the same kind of external cover, that's just not, I'm a
Just
big book I love books. I love to buy books, but I'm not gonna buy that many.
no.
Um, so
It's
and, a lot of it is it's not necessarily even the author's fault, right? Like, they might not have any control over that, it's the publisher, and I
yeah,
can understand why the publisher does it, right? They're all trying to compete with Amazon. They're all trying to, get people to go out to, like, indie bookstores, local bookstores, Barnes& and Noble to buy them, so I understand why they do it. I just wish it was more like what Taylor Swift does, where she has, these, like, special versions, but then, like, 6 months later, she puts all those songs on Spotify, so you
yes.
can listen to them. So,
Yes.
I just wish that it was like, okay, if you
Bring
really
it
wanna
back to
read it
the
right
fans.
away, you go buy it, but then, like, in 6 months, SJM publishes all those bonus chapters on her website or something, but I don't think
Yes.
authors do that. So,
Exactly,
um
exactly. Or even just on your you know, your Kindle, so you can just get those bonus chapters, even if they cost
yeah.
money. I just want the bonus chapters.
Yeah,
It's
I would pay, $5 to get, like, the bonus chapters on my Kindle or something. I'd probably pay 9.99 for a packet of all of the bonus chapters. I would.
100%. 100%. All right, you heard it here, guys. That's another opportunity for them. But look, I think it's so important. I completely understand, as you said, why they need to do it and get people into stores purchasing the books. But as fans, as bookstagrammers, we just want to read the books. We just want this information. And we don't want to go out and have to buy 10 books, particularly when they all have the matching cover. They don't have nice, fancy, special, different covers that at least look really pretty on our walls. You know, it's just not really worth it. So, and we just
Yeah.
don't have the space in our houses, let's be honest. Like,
No, I do not.
and my husband will
Anyway,
literally kill me if I went out and bought 6 copies. He got upset enough at me that when Iron Flame came out, I got the Kindle version, and then I went and got a soft, I got the copy from my local bookstore, and then I had one on order from Amazon, and I was like, yeah, but that's a hardcover. I'm like, so I can't not order that one. Like, I still need
I
it.
have to have
Um,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. My husband thinks it's so I actually don't I don't read any of my books as physical books. I exclusively read on Kindle. So for every book I buy it on Kindle and I buy a hard copy, which drives my husband bonkers. I think at this point, because, we've been together for so long, he has kind of accepted it. But any books behind me on my bookshelf, I have not actually opened up
Unread,
that cover and read them. I've read
unopened.
them all on Kindle.
Well, one day they could be worth a lot of money. Like, I've been theorizing that Iron Flame first edition may actually be worth money because it has mistakes in it. Mistakes are
Yeah.
what make something valuable because they're like,
Yeah,
oh, that one didn't get
absolutely.
printed right. So, guys, when you've been sitting there and saying, oh, there's no dragon on chapter 17, guess what? One day we could be sitting on, $100,000 copy or something. Like,
Yeah, you
so
never know.
find
You
those.
never know. I actually don't mind I didn't get a mistake version, and I'm kinda bummed about it. I kinda wish I had gotten a mistake version because that seems cool to me.
Yep, yep, that's it, that's it. No, I love it. I bought 2 mistake versions because why not? And, we'll see if they're worth $1,000,000 one day. I'll be a millionaire and I'll be doing nothing but podcasting. I won't need to
Yep.
have a day job anymore. It'll be very exciting. All right. let's jump into a little segment we call What Books Are We Excited to Read in the Upcoming Month? So, Allie, have you got any books that you are looking forward to reading apart from Crescent City 2, Crescent City 3, anything Sarah J. Maas, anything that you are looking forward to reading this month?
I have quite a few books on my list of excited books. I just bought it's called Ink Blood Sister Scribe. It just the book itself is very pretty, though, as I've said, I'm going to read it on my Kindle. I'm really, really excited to read that. I'm really excited to read the Spark of the Everflame series
Oh,
that you actually brought to my attention. It's really crazy because we recorded an episode like a month or so ago, and you were like, "Oh, I'm really excited about this Spark of the Everflame series," and I was like, "I haven't heard of it." And then ever since then, it's like all I am seeing on my social
yes,
feeds. Everyone is talking about it, so there's like 6 books or something. So I'm super excited to dive into that.
yes,
But I just feel like I have to get through, Massmas before I can do that.
yes, universe first. No, I'm the same. I saw a review that said this isn't just a want, this is a need. You need to read these books. You need to read them. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I've got to put these high on my priority list. And then I was so happy when you came back and you were like, Nicole, all I'm hearing is how amazing this Spark of the Everflame series is. We need to bring this to the podcast. We need to read this next. So, guys, what we're thinking we might do, which tell us if you think this is a good idea, we thought we might try to read these books together. So, once we get past our little mass, Crescent City 3, we're going to jump into Spark of the Everflame. We thought Allie and Nicole, we're going to read them side by side, see, we could share our reactions, see how fast we read. What do you
Like
think?
one book at a time, not quite a deep dive because we're always going to just have a conversation and be about the vibes, but kind of like one episode on book 1, one episode on book 2 and go from there. And I think it'll be super exciting.
Yes, yes, super excited for that one. Love that one. Right, any other books you're looking forward to?
You also another series that I have added to my TBR that you told me about is The Kingdom of the Wicked. So I am going to get to that as well. Those are kind of like the next like 2 series that I want to read. I'm really excited about Kingdom of the Wicked. I
And you
love
will love Kingdom of the Wicked because coming out of Crescent City 3 and
that's
possibly
exactly what I was
looking
thinking.
at the Princes of Hell and things like that, that is another whole series around the Princes of Hell. A bit more focus on like wrath, sloth, all the different sort of, what are
The
they?
Deadly Sins or whatever.
Deadly sins. That's what they're all based
Mhm.
off. But it's really, I just say, it's kind of similar world and kind of those morally grey devil demon characters that maybe aren't as well devilish in all the right ways and not all the wrong ways. So I'm so excited
I
to read
love
those.
a devilish in all the right ways character.
I love it.
What
I
about
love it.
you? Are you excited to read
Um,
anything?
I'm the same. I'm looking forward to getting into the Emberly Ash series that you have recommended that we're going to bring to this podcast and have her come as an author. So that's on my next on my list once I get past Mass Universe. And then my other one was Spark of the Everflame. That is something I've had it there on my TBR list. I'm looking so forward to it. But something I'm looking really forward to is that I'm getting a new Kindle, like a color one. I don't know if anyone saw, but I got really disappointed on Christmas, right? And I really feel sorry for my husband because it was not his fault. I just got really confused about an Amazon delivery. So what happened, right, was so just after Christmas, we had a delivery from Amazon and I got it delivered from the postman. I grabbed it and it had a lithium battery. And then my husband's like, oh, don't look at that. That's your Christmas present. But then it was kind of like a box. It was about an A3 sort of size earth could that be with a lithium battery? Like I'm like, I don't need a new iPad or anything. And then my little brain, my little bookstagram brain, thought about someone that had a color Kindle sort of thing. And I went, oh my god, it's the new Kindle. It's a new Kindle that you can write on and it's got color and everything. So I got super excited. And I am just banking on this for Christmas. I am so excited. I'm just thinking I'm going to get Spark of the Everflame on that. I'm going to be able to see all my new books in color. It's going to be so awesome. And then I get it, and it's a ring light. It's a ring light, guys. I felt really bad because I actually felt like crying. I actually wanted to cry, and my husband felt so bad, and I'm like, fault. I just really thought it was a new Kindle, and now I'm just gonna have to go back to my black and white Kobo. Anyway, but I'm okay. It's okay. I've just gone and ordered one myself. So it is coming from America. It's not like a Kindle. Well, I'll be able to show you guys when I get it, but it's like a color Kindle, and I think you can write on it a bit. It looks very pretty. I'm so excited, and it should come around mid-January. So I'm just looking forward to having that, so I can read all my books in color, like in a few weeks' time. So,
Right. That is, I have like the newer, I have like not that one because that one's like new. I have the one from before that where it was like paper white. And I love my Kindle, but I'm also like, it would be so cool to be able to write on my Kindle. You know, to
no.
take my notes for the podcast.
Exactly. There's like that Kindle Scribe, and then the one that I'm getting, I think it has that option as well, but it's also like it's like a muted color. And so you actually see it in color, but
So
it's
cool.
muted. So it's not that intensity that you get if you pulled out an iPad and tried to read on that. It's well, I'm excited anyway. I was like, I had to choose between the Scribe and that, and I chose the color because I guess I just wanted my books to be pretty, and I'm all about the vibe. And I was like, if I can write on it, that's great. But if not, oh well.
Yeah, yeah. The color will be awesome. So I'm excited that you got that for yourself.
Yes, yes, my own little Christmas present to myself. My poor husband, he felt so bad and he really didn't need to. It was totally 100% my own fault.
A
But
ring light is a great present. He knows that you're
it
getting
is a
into
great
the
present,
podcast and Instagram,
especially
like,
when
it's
you're
a
a
very good
podcaster.
present.
Like, you need the lighting, the quality lighting. It's all about that. So, yes, so I'll be looking forward to reading my books on my new Kindle when it arrives. Yeah, otherwise, Spark of the Everflame and just getting through this mass universe, which we are going to bring to you today. So, last episode, we talked about Crescent City 1 and we gave you a bit of a synopsis of Crescent City 1. Today, we're going to bring you Crescent City 2. Now, there are two options here, right? I either give you the 60-second version, which is really the version that would be in my brain, which basically tells you that 75% of the book, not a whole lot happens, and the last 100 pages, like, boom, everything happens, and your mind explodes.
Everything.
But we're going to give you instead my 7-page version of the synopsis because my only other option was to write this down step by step because let's be honest, this book is confusing. The characters are confusing. The story is confusing. It's like half of it is like I don't know what's going on. Half of it I'm not sure if I care what's going on. I'm confused a lot of the time and it's sort of a mixture of confused but also not a lot happening, but I have written it down step by step to hopefully make it nice and easy for you guys. How did you find it, Ellie?
Um, I no, it's yes. Sorry, I had like a weird echo, so that was weird. Anyway, listeners of the pod,
I
if
didn't
you
hear it.
heard
I didn't hear it. It didn't happen, guys.
okay.
Nothing happened.
Anyway, we'll have to edit that out or not. No, it's like truly you can either be like, well, there's kind of this war with the rebels, but like honestly, that stuff doesn't really matter because all that really matters is like what they discover at the end. Or you can really get into the world and there's like no in between. So I think people want the details. So we're gonna give you those details. But guys, it's a very
All
long
right.
book. It's almost pages.
All
So
right. So here we
go
go.
ahead.
Here we go. All right, let's get going. All right, get your thinking caps on and try and remember all the characters' names. So we begin with the Thunderbird Sophie, who is rescuing her brother. Then she presumably gets caught and dies, or at least goes missing. We then move to Bryce going to the ballet with Hunt to watch Juniper, and they're recovering from the events of the CC1. She now has her starlight powers, and her chest lights up for no apparent reason. Then her and Hunt have made a vow of chastity to get to know each other until winter solstice, which personally really frustrates me. I'm like, you guys are adults. I feel like I would have rather seen them like have a fight
You
or an
can get to know
argument.
each other in all the ways.
Exactly, exactly. That's just like a more normal part of getting to know someone. But anyway, they've made a vow of chastity for now. So they are trying to keep a low profile following the threat from the Asteri from Crescent City 1. And Bryce has a new job as Jaceba's museum has kind of gone kaput because it all kind of got blown up. So now she has a new job and is a bit closer now to her brother Root, who is still living his kind of young college university lifestyle and I don't know. I hate when they go there. I
Frat
just
boy.
feel like I'm thrown into a frat house of mess and what do they call it, mirth root and everything that's going on. But So Bryce's father, the Autumn King, has decided that Bryce needs to be betrothed to her cousin Faye Cormac. Bryce and Hunt take this news quite badly and have a fight with Cormac. Hunt is now free. He was obviously released from his kind of what he had, but he's still working for the 33rd. And the 33rd is now run by a new leader, Celestina. Palestina. How do you say it? Palestina?
I say Celestina. Yeah, I
Yeah.
say Celestina.
Cool. Who actually seems quite nice. Definitely a nice
She
change from the
does.
previous one.
Yeah.
Pollux and Bastian, the Hellhound, have joined the ranks, and Hunt hates them both, but particularly Pollux. Pollux is currently in a relationship with the Hind, just for anyone that doesn't know. And Bryce finds out more about Danica during this. So um, she was doing some underground work, looking into the universe, looking into wolf bloodlines. So we're finding out a little bit more about Danica, finding out that she was keeping even more secrets than we already found out from Crescent City 1. We find out more about Danica's father, Mordok, who is actually the Hellhound and lead interrogator. We find out that he is actually Danica's father, because one of the questions is like, who would even, hook up with Sabine, who seems kind of awful? Well, we found out it is Mordok. So Ethan, one of the wolves, he's been kicked out of the pack because he helped Bryce. He ends up going to stay with Bryce and puts up a bit of a wall cock block between Bryce and Hunt, so only adding to their vow of chastity that he's in the way and he's sleeping next to Bryce initially. Ethan's feeling very lost at this point in the book. We find out that Ethan was secretly in love with Bryce before she met Connor, but he kept all this a secret from Bryce and from Connor. So the kind of group, they start looking into this Sophie Emile kind of story, which for me wasn't overly interesting, but they are trying to find him because he's a Thunderbird, which, by the way, guys, that name Thunderbird just kind of drove me bananas. All I could think about was that 1960s kids show, and it's just, I don't know, I would have liked a different name. But anyway, that's kind of the big thing in the story. They're trying to find Emile, who is a Thunderbird. But so they hear that he might be where the weary souls rest. So they end up going to the Bone Quarter to try and find him, but this turns out to be incorrect. And then they almost get themselves killed by the Underking. But they find out some information from the Underking while they're there. That they find out that all the dead are actually turned into second life, and their energy goes back to the grid, and that potentially these souls are not actually getting an afterlife. Once the Underking tells them this information, he tries to kill Bryce and Hunt, and they have to combine their powers and use that power, even I think taking some power from the grid to actually overcome him and manage an escape. And Tharian, who kind of has his own story going here. I don't really talk much about Tharian. He's just trying to get out of his engagement. It's just the underworld. I don't know. I found that underwater sort of thing not very interesting. I don't know about you,
Yeah,
Ali, but
I
anyway,
agree. Yeah.
he helps them escape. Rune, going so far, am
It's
I?
like, that's all you really need to say. Yeah.
Exactly. So Rune takes in Ethan to give Bryce and Hunt some privacy, and he's concerned for his welfare. They get concerned for Connor's welfare because of what they found out about the second life. So they want to try and find out how he's going. So they decide to go to the Mystics and talk to Connor and the dead for more clues. Mystics are considered quite dangerous, and they're only really used by lowlifes. On entry, Bryce realizes that the Mystics have enslaved some fire sprites, which, as she had Leobar from Crescent City 1, she is pretty connected to fire sprites, and she's pretty angry that they have been captured here. There are 3 mystics, a male, female, and both, that live their life in these like bathtubs, and they reach out to the universe. Rather than actually finding Connor, the Mystics end up going to the 7 Rings of Hell, and they meet with Thanatos, the Prince of the Ravine, who, what I pick up from, he's like the lowest of the low of the 7 Rings. He's right at the bottom. He admits that Connor is not in hell, and then he wants to eat souls and isn't like his other brothers, Apollyon and Atos, who act quite civil. I think there's some really interesting conversation that happens in this part, so I highly
Agreed.
recommend anyone to jump into this section because it's quite interesting. He then takes from the mystic and tries to take his soul, or at least some of his soul, and that kind of causes mayhem at the facility, and I think it partially blows up and they end up leaving. So the group end up going. They find footage of Danica taking photos from the book in Joseba's museum, which is the Wolves Through Time, Lineage of the Shifters. So once they find out this, Bryce kind of goes to investigate and talks to the prime of the wolf pack, who's quite old. He's like old and kind of decrepit. He kind of forgets things and then remembers here and there. And that's why it's kind of getting bad now because Sabine's starting to take over. It seems like the current prime is a really nice guy, but he's getting very old and Sabine's going to be terrible. So the prime outlines that they've forgotten how to be free wolves before they were with the Asteri. So he obviously remembers a time before they were ruled by them. So yeah, Ethan gets a call from the old prime wolf. He gets a phone call, said he could be an alpha, but Ethan doesn't want to rejoin the pack as he's concerned about Sabine and Amelie, that they're going to be primes before him and he doesn't want to be under their rule. He returns to the Mystics because he's worried about he wants to find out more about Connor and find out that one of the Mystics is actually a wolf, and that she's actually an alpha, but she doesn't want to leave. She's worried about her family and she feels like she needs to be there, so she refuses to leave. So instead, he decides to steal the fire sprites and he runs off with them, one of which turns out to be a dragon. So he takes, I don't so he takes them back to Rune's place. And so sidelines to this, Rune is now working undercover for the rebels and he's speaking to the undercover person, Day, because he can speak mind to mind. And there's a lot of chemistry between these two. This is a very fun relationship.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of developing on the sidelines. So the rebel crew, this is a bit that I didn't remember that well, but I've given you what I can. They kind of go off to look up Pippa and Prythian, who end up killing a whole heap of humans, and I think something around the mech suits. Pratt and Bryce get caught in a fight. They're fighting against the Hind and all that crew. Hunt goes all Fey Predator, and they manage to end up escaping in an underwater Queen submarine. This is where Hunt and Bryce finally confirm that they're mates, and they finally get that connection that you might have all been waiting for, and that vow of chastity is now officially gone. It was kind of disappearing over the time, but that's when she has to hook up with him so that he doesn't go all Fey Predator, and he calms down from that little.
And it's a pretty good scene. It's in like this underwater greenhouse, which is pretty cool.
Yes, and then she teleports. She teleports while she's in there in that intense moment, and that's what helps her obviously start to explore that. So
Yeah.
yes. So after that, uh, so Hunt figures out that the Viper Queen is involved with this Emil being hidden, and they go to kind of her lair. Turns out that Bryce was involved with this the whole time, and had gotten the Viper Queen involved in finding Emil, and she was engaged with her, but she hadn't told Hunt about it. So he's kind of pretty upset about that after that. And we find out that Emil actually doesn't have any power. It was only his sister Sophie that was actually a Thunderbird. So going back to at Rune's house, they're getting to know the fire sprites and the dragon. They find out that the dragon's fire can kill a prince of hell and that they are extremely expensive and priceless. So keep that little bit of information for later. Hunt is angry that Bryce lied about Emil, but they make up pretty quickly. Bryce talks to the Autumn King and he tells her he organised a union with Cormac to protect her, to get her into Avalon, which is a safe hold even the Asteri can't touch. So it's kind of interesting to, I mean, I think as much as the Autumn King is kind of a bad guy, it's kind of interesting that he seems to still have some care for Bryce, or in his own unique way. It's interesting whether Avalon is under that sort of Asteri rule. It sounds like they're somewhat separate and it's a much
Mhm.
safer place to live. So after Bryce used her name, because somewhere on a little bit sideline, she used her name, Princess Bryce Denan, to help out her friend Juniper to get a lead role in the ballet. But now that she did that, she's officially a Fae princess. So now she is under the Autumn King's rule. And Hunt is also a prince now because Bryce and him are mates. But unfortunately, in the Juniper situation, Juniper becomes really angry about this, and they're not on speaking terms currently. So now I shall go to another story, Hypaxia, who is one of the witches that Rune is engaged with. She confirms that the witch's magic is running dry like it's being siphoned. So there's something really interesting going on with witch's magic, but it's definitely
Mm.
disappearing. Hypaxia, being a necromancer, knows about the second light being taken. Because she is able to speak to the dead. And so she knows that those souls are sort of being herded and used. Bryce, so they end up having this thing where, so Bryce's power is more effective when it's kind of jump started like a battery, and she uses Hypaxia's power to teleport. So what happens here? Apollyon has sent in his hound, and Bryce is sort of forced to learn how to use her power and teleport. And she has to sort of use someone else's power in this moment. So that they manage to get away from them. They then attend Celestina and Ephraim's engagement. The Triari attend by sort of video conference, and everyone fully freaks out and panics. It seems like the power the Asteri kind of bring just kind of, I don't know, it almost forces everyone to their knees and everyone starts sweating. And I don't know, it's almost like blood's going to come out of their nose or something. It's just like their power is really crazy insane. So
Overwhelming.
it's like, yeah, people don't really want to actually see it, even though they're ruled by them. And yeah, Bryce and Hunter confirmed there to be mates. Everyone can smell them and that their scents are joined. Um, we find out that Celestina and Hypaxia are secretly in love. We catch them in a romantic moment, and Rune is trying to meet Day in person, but the harpy is there and ruins it. Rune uses Hypaxia to try to contact Connor, but the Underking appears to him instead and kind of gets them caught up in, I don't know, he kind of gets them into trouble. Apollyon visits Bryce. So this is a super important scene, guys, and this is page 666, which I spoke about last episode, and I'll probably speak more to today. But Apollyon visits Bryce and tells her that Adas's great love was the last starborn queen. Apollyon says to come and find me in hell when you learn the truth. I'm very curious what that truth is and whether it's just about the Asteri or whether it's about so much more. So Hell is preparing for war. So going to the back to kind of Rune's gang, the dragon has escaped and is now happy with the Viper Queen. So she's gone, and they've sort of lost having any control of her. The Under King has demanded that they meet at Erd's temple, but it's a trap, and Pippa and the others attack. Bryce teleports, but Bastian arrives and helps them escape, and they find out he was Danica's mate. Danica was exploring the wolf lineage for him because he's a hellhound, but I think she also predicted that there was some kind of wolf connection. So Bryce has a dream, and oh no, sorry, I've already discussed that. Let's jump down. So the gang then go to the Asteri archives to find out why Sophie went there. So we kind of find out along the way that Sophie went to the archives. I can't really remember why, kind of because she's like a rebel. But anyway, she was finding out the truth about the Asteri. So they decide to go and try and find out that information as well. At the same time, Cormac and Tharian have kind of gone to, I think, the mech prototype factory. Is that correct? Like, I was getting so confused at this
I
point.
don't know. I mean, honestly, I think what matters is like they go to do a distraction. Like that's basically what they're doing.
Exactly, exactly. Although
Like I don't know,
this
something
is
with the
my
rebels.
Aryan
It
story,
doesn't really matter.
but we are getting into the last 100 pages, guys. So this is the part that's more interesting and important.
Yeah.
So Bryce, Rune, and Hunt have all gone to the Asteri archives, and Bryce finds the Dusk Room and finds out that the Asteri feed off First Light and Second Light. She also finds information on the worlds the Asteri have conquered and fought against before arriving to Midgard. Hell is the only world that have beaten the Asteri, and Bryce finds out that Hell tried to assist Midgard in the first fight 15,000 years ago. It's also confirmed that Hell became attached to Midgard colonists, confirming that there was a relationship between Thea and Adis last time. I love that so much, and I want that to happen all over again. Okay, Bryce is caught by Regelus, and he tells her the history of the Asteri on Midgard. Bryce's starborn ancestor outside Midgard closed the gates so the Asteri were trapped on Midgard. So the Asteri actually can't escape Midgard at this point in time. Only Bryce has the horn to allow that to travel and reopen the gates. So the Asteri want to use her to try and reopen those gates. We find out that there are two types of Fae on Midgard. There's the High Fae, which are Rune and Bryce, and then there's the Shifter Fae that come from different planets. And these ones they share with animals, and they often shifted into. So these are the wolves, the mare, all the ones that sort of have animal connections. And they suggest that Midgard was originally a human planet and didn't have any magic beings to begin with. So the Harpy catches Hunt, Rune, and Bryce and goes to trap and kill Rune. But the Hind enters and shows who she really is, which she is Day. We end up finding out that what the Hind is Day. I was so excited. I kind of saw it coming, but it was so good. Did you see it coming?
Um only like I was still surprised by it. Like I suspected it, but I also suspected multiple, like I thought it was Hypaxia for a while. I thought it was the Harpy for a while.
Yeah, I
So
thought
it
it was
was surprising.
Celestina. I thought it was her as well,
Yeah.
but it wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. I really liked that it was Hind. I'm really interested in her character.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
Rune is really shocked and upset by this, and he kind of puts a wall up between himself and Day, or the Hind, even though she helps him to escape and she kills the Harpy. But Pollux arrives, and then she has to kind of go back into Hind character, and then they're taken to the Asteri. Hunt helps
And
Bryce to escape and to try and get to Hell for help. Bryce manages to escape by teleporting, but there are sort of wards up that make it really difficult. So she's only able to make small jumps, but she finally gets to the gate and falls through. Hunt is then taken to the gate, and the Asteri rebrand him with a tattoo crown. He appears to be losing himself and his freedom with this, and he suddenly says that he remembers nothing at all. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there, and whether Hunt will even be the same person or whether he's going to be completely without memory and completely ruled by the Asteri. Very interesting times ahead. So, last bit. Bryce wakes up in a land of green and mist, a very beautiful, classic city. A male with wings and scarred hands speaks in a different language finds her. Bryce has the Star Sword. The male notices this and asks her to wear a blindfold and takes her to a mansion. Other Fae arrive, all speaking a different language. They realize the Star Sword speaks to a dagger. I think this is Cassian's dagger. And they say something about Alpha and Omega. They light up and they say Gwydion, the lost magical sword. They confirm that she is not in hell. A small female can speak in the Old Fae language. And finally, a Fae covered in paint splatters and a male that looks just like Rune but more tanned enters. Then he says, "Hello, Bryce. My name is Rhysand." Because 33. Oh my god, they're interconnected.
that was a marathon for you to get through. You did such a good job. Like there's so much that goes on, and like, it's crazy that like the main plot of the book, the rebels, like just is not important at all. Like
No,
who
no. I didn't even, there's actually even more than that, and I just went, not important. I haven't even
it's
picked it
not
up.
even
These are the
important.
bits that seem like they have some
Yeah.
relevance and importance.
Yeah.
And then again, and then the very end, there's an epilogue that just has Ethan has gone to the Mystics and he's gone to get that the wolf who is actually the lost Fendir heir. So
Yeah.
that could potentially overtake Sabine. So there's a nice little epilogue there as well. But
Yeah.
hopefully that gave you guys lots of information about Crescent City 2. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to now. You could just listen to that and have the basic synopsis of what happened.
What happened? Do you remember where you were when you finished the book? Like, do you remember? I remember mine like so vividly because I was freaking out.
I think I was just reading in bed. I think I was just reading in bed. I can't remember the exact moment, but I remember my emotion and the way I freaked out. And this was before I had a bookstagram. I don't even think I was connected yet to even other people on Instagram that
I
read
was
books yet.
doing.
I was just in utter epic shock and excitement. I was just like, I sort of got through this book, and in truth, I was kind of there thinking, yeah, 3-star book. This is not my favorite book. And then that last bit just, whoa, it blew my mind.
I was on a road trip with my husband. We were driving from like Portland, Oregon, all the way down to San Francisco. Because we had visited friends and then we were visiting other friends in San Francisco. So we're on this epic road trip. I was reading, my husband was driving because I'm a passenger princess. And I just like screamed and I was like, ah! And I like threw my book and I was like, oh my God. And I like freaked out. And like my husband was like, what is going on? And I was like, the worlds, they're connecting, and he
Oh
didn't
my,
know anything about what was going on. And then I made him, because at that time it wasn't reading on Kindle. I only like read physical copies. I didn't have a Kindle. And so we're on this road trip, like really trying to make good time so that we aren't getting in too late. And I'm like, no, we have to find a Barnes and Noble. I have to start the Throne of Glass series like right now, because I hadn't read Throne of Glass yet either. I had just read ACOTAR and now
whoa.
Crescent City. And so like I'm literally like on my phone trying to find a Barnes and Noble that has Throne of Glass
Closest
like
Barnes and
in
Noble.
stock. Yeah. And like we went on this like crazy detour because I was like, I must start this new like SJM series right away. Um So yeah,
Oh,
that is
that's
my
so
story.
exciting. It's amazing you didn't go and have a car crash. And I'm just impressed even just that you actually have the ability to read in the car. I get car sick if I read in the car. So all I can do is listen to an audiobook. But oh, that is so exciting. That is so exciting. No,
I really love it.
yeah, I started with Crescent City 1, then I went into a Throne of Glass series and was obsessed with that book, like in love with Rowan, basically.
Yeah,
And then I went into ACOTAR and then just kept reading them on repeat for about 6 months before I finally was willing to let it go. So I almost had like, so then we had A Quarter Silver Flame come out and I read that. And then it was a year before we had the Crescent City 2. I almost had to refresh myself on the Crescent City
yeah,
world because it was right back at number one, which then was almost a little bit disappointing because after reading Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, those worlds are so huge and epic and very like traditional. Like they're more set back in, a Fey world,
yeah.
slightly olden
No
days, that
technology.
sort of thing, which really brings about the magic. Whereas Crescent City being in this really modern world, it loses a bit of that magic, particularly when you add to it that Bryce and Hunt, they don't exactly live a magical lifestyle. They just eat pizza and watch Sunball, and it's not hugely exciting. It just feels like
Yeah.
your normal kind of boyfriend girlfriend romance.
Mhm. Totally,
Mm-hmm.
totally.
But that's so exciting. That's so exciting. You must have loved. I mean, okay, how good was Throne of Glass after you read those books?
Oh my god, I inhaled it. I read it so fast. Like, it was so hard because we were on this road trip where we were supposed to be seeing, like, friends. Because then once we were in San Francisco, we drove from San Francisco to, like, Fresno, California to see family, and then we drove from there home to Salt Lake. So the good news was I had a lot of driving or
Yes.
well, riding, and my husband was, like, doing the driving, but then the bad news is, like, there were all these like obligations to go see friends, to see family, and I
Oh,
did
so
not want to do that.
annoying.
I just wanted to keep reading. I was like, no, I just want to read. But I think like I had the whole series finished by the time we like got home. I mean, I am not even kidding you. I was just
Wow.
voraciously reading
Even
them.
Kingdom of Ash, even
I
like,
think so. Yeah, yeah.
and
Maybe I had to read like Kingdom of Ash at home or something. I can't remember exactly,
yeah,
but I know I was like mostly through the whole
that's
series.
amazing. That is so amazing. And what is your favorite book? And your like, how did you react to?
So, I mean, Kingdom of Ash is my favorite book in the Throne of Glass series, but like a very, very, very close second is Heir of Fire.
Yes,
Like,
me
you
too.
know, and like sometimes I would change my mind. Like, do I really, like Heir of Fire is just so good. It's just
Oh,
so good. And
I
I can't
and
wait to get to like book 3 in Crescent City because I feel like that is when it's going to really pick up. I don't know.
I
I feel
know
like,
because the
SJM,
third book.
it takes her a couple books to, like, really make them amazing,
Yeah,
and I
yeah. And
think
I'm
that's
really hoping that the reason that Crescent City 2 maybe wasn't the greatest book is just because it was in preparation. It was just
yeah,
preparing us for the massive book that number 3 is going to be.
yeah,
I loved Air of Fire and I hadn't read ACOTAR, so I had no idea that Sarah J. Maas has a tendency to change, who the main MMC is.
yeah,
So I'm there thinking it's Chol, and I'm like, oh, they've had this fight, but they're going to make up. And then she's off learning how to be a Fae with Rowan. And after a
yeah.
while, I'm like, Jesus, Rowan's hot. Jesus, kind of a shame she's not going to end up with him. I'm so disappointed. And then I think I jumped on YouTube and I saw someone that had dedicated a whole video to Aelin and Rowan. And I just went, so excited. And then I was like, grab book 4 and I'm reading that. And then finally book 5. And I was, when you actually feel like you're experiencing love, like that was how I felt. Like I was experiencing falling in love again. And I was truly obsessed with Aelin and Rowan. Like I could not get
Mhm.
enough of it.
Aelin is my favorite SJM heroine. Like,
Mm,
she
same.
more than Bryce, more than Feyre, Aelin is number 1 for me.
I agree. I agree. She to me is just the ultimate FMC. She is just
Yeah,
so strong and powerful. The things she goes throughout the books, like the way that she's tortured and everything else. But then she
yeah,
had this like light-hearted sort of side to her as well. She's a bit funny sometimes. She's very brave. She's very brave, and I just love her. I mean, I think there are
Yeah.
times that even Feyre annoys me a little bit here and there, but
Yeah, they were annoys me.
I feel like it's generally been, Aelin is my favorite FMC and Rhysand is my favorite MMC, but
Yeah,
that might have changed a bit in Court of Silver Flames because he drove me nuts in Court of Silver Flames. I just
yeah,
felt like he was so overpowering of Nesta. He was always kind of like Nesta's doing wrong and I'm doing right, and he's keeping all these secrets from, Feyre, but it was all Nesta's fault. And I actually just got quite annoyed at Rhysand through that one. So then it maybe became Cassian because Cassian's my man. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, while we're talking about Aelin, I'm gonna just throw out a little theory here.
go for
This
it.
is not mine. I saw this on Instagram, and I sent it to you.
Hmm.
Um, but apparently, and I did not remember this, like, so I'm so glad that somebody found this. But in multiple times in Throne of Glass, Aelin is referred to the Queen of shoot, shadow, fire and
Fire and shadow. Maybe
shadow and shadow.
shadow and fire.
Shadow and fire. Thank you. Sorry, I like totally lost it. Which no, flame and shadow. There we go.
Flame and shadow. Close
Yeah,
enough.
which is
You know what we mean.
yes, yeah, sorry. So Aelin is referred to as the Queen of Flame and Shadow. And book 3 is House of Flame and Shadow.
Ah,
So that is making people think that Aelin will make an appearance in CC3. Initially, I did not think that she would. I thought, I
mhm.
think the Throne of Glass is going to be closed world. I don't think we're going to get a connection with them. But I don't know. I feel like SJM doesn't do details
Yes, yes, and
without
Sarah
making them
J.
important.
Maas, in an interview, maybe like 6 months or so ago, she sort of said, "Oh, well, that world's finished, or is it?" She said.
Yeah.
So she kind of brought
Yeah.
it down. We're like, "What are we getting, like, another book? Because that would be the best." Like, I just want that world to keep going, but maybe it is also a suggestion that Aelin is going to come into Crescent City 3 or into this whole world. It's gonna be very, very interesting, and I would love to see all these characters overlap and
Yeah.
interlap and meet and hang out and get pizza. Like, that would just be the
I
best.
know.
We'll go to Readers and just dance and hang out
As
and
much
drink,
as
like,
you do not like Bryson Hunt getting pizza, you are okay with Aelin and Bryce and Feyre and Rhysand all getting pizza. Just so that we're clear. Is that
yes,
right?
yes, because
Okay.
that is interesting, whereas Bryson Hunt is boring. Like, that is the
Boring.
difference.
I totally agree. Yeah.
It
Well,
could
and
be
it
a
would be so interesting because Aelin doesn't have any power at the end of the book.
she's only got a
She's
little bit of
powerless,
power, and I'm just sort of sad about that. I was just like, can't she just still have all her power? And the same way about Nesta. Nesta's lost all her power, and I love
right?
them being super powerful badasses. It's just, it makes me a bit sad that, I mean, I know she can. I mean, at least I guess Aelin can link in with Rowan, and she can get some of his power, and that's great. But I don't know. I'd always love them to kind of get their power back. I mean, maybe not to the point that it's all encompassing and it's too much for them to handle. Because I know, like, Aelin, it was almost a struggle for her because she had so much
So
power that
much.
was just
And
rumbling
same with
underneath
Nesta.
her, and Nesta as well. But, they can just have like 75% of it. So it's like heaps of power, but they can control it. That'd just be great,
Yeah,
you know.
I know. I want them to get at least a little power. But
Mm.
maybe they won't. Maybe they'll stay powerless and they'll still be able to like fight,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I really want to talk about something, and I really should wait for our Silver Flame discussion, but I just can't because I saw this last night and it kind of blew my mind because I was reading A Court of Silver Flame last night, being so close to Crescent City to it kind of put everything together. So I was reading the part where Nesta has gone to collect the harp. So she's been sort
Okay.
of sitting, so I don't know, she's kind of stones and bones. She's ended up finding out that the harp is underneath the prison that is in, it's around the night court, but it's in on an island. So
Yeah.
they've gone there, and when she gets there, she says this place feels sort of empty. It feels strange. It feels like something was taken from here. Like, and I'm just like, oh, and they also suggest that this was once theorized to be an eighth, like, kingdom, an eighth court. And I'm like, what we know about Crescent City too is the Asteri stole Fae from Alcatar World, potentially stole Rune and Bryce's ancestors, and they probably stole all of the Eighth Court from that place that is now the prison.
Mhm.
I
And
Mhm.
They it is labeled Dusk's Truth. And in Akatar, we have 4 seasonal courts and only 3 solar courts. We have night, day, and dawn, and what would be the 4th one? Dusk. And so that's what it is. It's dusk. And so I think that that island was the dusk court.
Yes.
And so this is expand this theory a little bit.
Mm.
I also actually think that Valaris was part of the dusk court as well. And because the night court is huge. If you look at that
Yeah,
map,
yeah,
it's like almost as big as
massive.
the rest of the island. So I actually think, and then you have like Valaris is way up here, and the Court of Nightmares is like down here. So I think the night court was the Court of Nightmares,
Yes.
and the Valaris was the dusk court,
Wow, that would
which
be
is the court that
amazing.
went to
And this will now
Mordor.
jump into a bit of a theory I have about Rune, because you know how Rune is always been talked about the prophecy that his bloodline will end with him. So,
Mhm.
I don't know if you have a theory around this as well. Now, they keep talking about it, which suggests to me that it's not going to be what we think. He's thinking I'm either going to die young or I'm not going to have children. But I think it's
Yeah.
going to be more than that. So my first theory is that maybe it's because of the different kinds of fae. And as we know, he's potentially mates with the hind. So if he ends up getting married to the hind, well, she's a different kind of fae. So maybe that means that their bloods will intermingle, that their children won't be pure of his bloodline anymore. They're now going to be mixed with the other type of fae that are the animals. So that's kind of my first theory. The other one is maybe that prophecy was just that his bloodline was no longer going to exist in Midgard. Maybe he's going to go and rule in Avatar world. Maybe he's going to go and finally rule the Dusk Court in Avatar.
I love that. I think that makes a ton of sense to me.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that like he's just his bloodline is done in Midgard. I That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
it would be nice. It'd be nice, and then he'd get a happy ending, and he'd get to rule. And I'm very interested to see what happens in that
Yeah.
space. I think it's gonna be really
And
good.
I even think that your first theory makes sense too because like it would make sense to me that his bloodline had not been like interrupted with that other Fae shifter bloodline yet because
Exactly.
the Autumn King is super old. We know that, right? And he's like all of the Fae have always been really, really like
Pure.
we only mix with each other. So it
Mhm.
would make a lot of sense that up until Rune, no one from that kind of line of fae bred or had children with the shifter fae.
Yeah.
um
Yes.
so that's really exciting.
It's very interesting though that when we said that, the Autumn King did choose Bryce's mother. And, when he was so focused on being pure Fae, he still chose her mother. So, apart from just thinking maybe she was just ridiculously gorgeous and he just couldn't resist her, was there a reason why? Is there something about her bloodline that is actually quite important?
Yeah. Yeah, because the Autumn King says to Bryce in book one that he was ready to make Ember his queen. He had all the papers drawn up and he was like, I don't, he didn't care. And then, of course, he kind of ruined it. And we don't exactly know how he ruined it.
Mhm.
Other than that, like Ember has some kind of scar from him.
Yep.
But I think that the Autumn King, this is like another theory that I have. Like, I think that the Autumn King is going to be better than we think he is. I think that like we hate him right now. I
Yes.
think he's going to get a redemption arc. And I think he knows a ton. Like he has clearly been doing all these little like experiments. He has like, when we first meet him in book one, he's like looking at the Ori, which is like this map of like their world and all the moons. And he says that he's looking for patterns, like he has
Yes.
those fake archives. Like I think that he knows all about the Asteri. I think he
Yes.
knows all about the other worlds, his bloodline. I think he knows where he comes from. And it would make sense to me that he would know something about Ember that maybe she herself didn't know
Yeah, yeah, and the
for
need to
sure.
mate with her and have a child with her. I think I agree with you. I think I think right now we think everything he's done has been quite evil and bad, but I think he's quite a misunderstood character. He obviously doesn't have social skills. We can clearly see that. But he
Right.
has a lot of knowledge, and I think he's had a lot of things going in the background that he has been trying to set certain things in order to potentially escape the Asteria. And if he knew about the Asteria, he potentially had to keep his knowledge under wraps because if
Yeah.
they caught him, they would try to stop him. So he's had to
Yeah.
kind of play along with even being somewhat of a villain to his children and things like that, when really he may have actually had a long term intention about this. And it's, yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's going to be very interesting to see where the Autumn King goes after this.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other major Crescent City 2 theories that we haven't discussed yet?
So mostly they're all like small little things. So like I think that the sword and like the sword's like
Gideon.
mate or
Gideon.
whatever is actually I think it's Azrael's sword, truth teller.
Ah,
Um
yes.
because it's described as having a black hilt and truth teller has a black hilt. So I think that it's truth teller and the sword.
Yes.
And in there's a prophecy in book one in of Crescent City that says, when sword and knife are reunited, so shall our people be. Which is a really interesting prophecy that's just like dropped super casually in book one. And so I think that now I think that I don't know if like Azrael is gonna give Bryce truth teller. He seems very attached to that knife.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that like that they're gonna be reunited, and so their people are gonna be reunited, and so then the question becomes, how are they being reunited? Are they all going to go to the Prythian world? Are they all going to go to the Midgard world? Or does reunited just simply mean that they all know kind of like the truth about their existence and they're like parting? Um, because there's not actually a ton of Fae, like of the high Fae. So maybe they all go to Prythian and they like that's the Dust Court and now Rune rules that or something like that. I don't know. But I find that prophecy very interesting.
Yes, yes. And it's going to be interesting to figure out how they're going to travel because Bryce Wise doesn't have the gates in this world. But I think, and I'm only just getting into this part, so I'll need to read it deeper with a Quarter Silver Flame. But now Nesta has the harp, and I think that allows you to to move between
Yep.
worlds and time and all sorts of things. So that's potentially going to be an important part, possibly in how she is going to go to Hell, how she is going to travel back to Midgard. But there's definitely going to be this need. They know now that they need to like overcome the Asteri and potentially help people to escape Midgard. So whether they're going to try and bring the Fae back to Prythian and to the Night Court or the Dusk Court, I would love to see that happen. It's going to be, oh, it's like I just
Yeah.
cannot wait for this book to come. I just it's like, but I'm the same. I have all these like little theories and little things. As I said, my biggest thing is I think Adis and Apollyon, the princes of Hell, are super important, and I'm really going for a new whole love story there, and I'm hoping that's going to happen. I think there's a few more really interesting little Easter eggs that are in A Court of Silver Flame. Meryl, who is doing a heap of research on potentially other
Yeah.
worlds, other dimensions, living on top of one another. So we're definitely seeing in the different worlds from the Autumn King to Meryl. They're having some awareness that there are potentially other realities, other dimensions, other worlds happening on top of each other, and they're starting to realize their connections.
Yeah. I think that when we talk about Akasif next week, I have a lot of theories about how like certain things connect, but that's sort of it for me in terms of just, you know, I wouldn't say exclusive Crescent City, but like Crescent City forward theories, basically.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
other than like obviously I'm really excited to see what happens with Ethan's, storyline. So
Same. I was going to say, I'm looking very forward to Ethan's storyline because I think we're hopefully going to see him maybe accept some of his alpha strength and possibly go into that. And obviously, he's now has tried to capture this, or, helped escape this mystic who is potentially able to take over from Sabine. So that's going to be a really interesting story where there's going to be a bit of romance there as well. I feel like there might be a bit of connection there for Ethan and that new wolf. Mystic
I
Wolf.
think so. I think it might be his mate, actually.
Mm, I know, which would be so sweet. I want Ethan to have a happy ending, and I'm hoping that Rune is not going to have that early death and that we hope. I hope he is going to end up with
I don't think
himself.
he will. I really
No,
don't.
no, he's
He's
too
too
mean to
important.
us. We know Sarah J. Maas. She really isn't actually a big fan of killing off major characters.
Yeah.
She really does. And generally, she has only ever killed off sort of a side, not terribly important character that you kind of know they could probably live without. She has not killed off any major characters. So I highly doubt that Rune is going anywhere.
Yeah,
As long
I
as she
agree.
sticks to her current rules. As long as she sticks to her current rules.
Yeah.
But you guys tell us, please share with us your thoughts. Do you have any other theories about Crescent City 2 that we haven't discussed today? We would love to hear what you have to say. What do you think of the Princes of Hell? Have you read these books in tandem? Have you also read Throne of Glass? Have you noticed other overlapping theories? And what do you think we're going to get in Crescent City 3? Very excited. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. All right, take
Yeah,
care.
thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.